In the second day's first session on an insight into numerical techniques for EM design, I welcome Dr. Anupama Marwa ma'am. It is my proud privilege to introduce Dr. Anupama Marwa ma'am, who is the speaker for today's session. Dr. Anupama is working as professor in Electronics and Communication Engineering Department at SLIET Longowal District, Sangrur, Punjab. She did her BE in Electronics and Communication Engineering, PEC Chandigarh in 1990, MTech from REC Kurukshetra in 1992, and PhD degree from Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar in the year 2003, with specialization in the field of design and field analysis for electromagnetic devices by finite element method with application to communication engineering, microwave and antennas. Her teaching career as lecturer at NIT, earlier REC Kurukshetra, and has total teaching experience of more than 27 years. She has worked at various key positions at reputed institutions, including SLIET Longowal, BCET and NIT Kurukshetra. She has supervised 21 MTech candidates, 11 PhD research scholars, and 3 PhD candidates are in progress. She is a fellow member of ISTE, New Delhi, and Institution of India. She has nearly 100 publications to her credit in international and national journals and references. Her continuing research interest primarily underpin the overarching notion that there are many underutilized yet powerful ways in which electromagnetic phenomena may be exploited in the area of biomedical engineering and in microscale and nanoscale structures at large. I welcome Anupama Madam for this session. Thank you for accepting our invitation, ma'am. Over to you. Thank you.
So, okay. So I'll start with my lecture. The topic of my talk is insight into numerical techniques for electromagnetic design. Now, all of you must be aware that in the current scenario, you see, I think there is hardly any researcher who is working in the field of electromagnetic design and the design of antennas and not aware of the basic, design procedure, right? So I'll first of all briefly go through the design procedure and then we will go into the details of electromagnetic design. Now the basic procedure, all of you, if some of the, I don't know, the field of the participants, so if any of your participants, they are into the field of designing of electromagnetic devices and microwaves and antennas, then they must be using the solvers, electromagnetic solvers. Am I right? Am I right? So,
yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I think you can, I want my session to be a little bit interactive. So I want that the participants can write in the chat box and let me know how many of you are in the designing, field, designing of the electromagnetic devices. So if you are using the electromagnetic solvers, can anyone tell me the names of the solver, particular software? Can you write in the chat box if anyone is working in this area and you are using the softwares?
Participants, please mention it in the chat box.
Yes, participants.
Yes, Madam Vandana Madam mentioned.
I want you to be interactive and active. Yeah. Tarang, okay, CST, good. So, Mr. Jeet Banerjee, do you know on what basis the CST solves the problems? What is the background of CST?
Moment of
Mr.
method.
Jeet, haven't worked in this area. Moment of method, good. And what about HFSS?
I'm not sure about it. I have to check it out, madam.
Okay. So you are, what are you doing?
I am an assistant professor at
Mr. Banerjee?
Adamas University, Kolkata, and I'm pursuing my PhD. I'm a registered PhD candidate from NIT Durgapur.
Durgapur. Okay, so what is your area of research?
Multiple input, multiple output antennas with wide bandwidth, basically ultra wideband MIMO antennas.
Okay, so yeah, so you're using HFSS?
I'm using CST, madam.
Are you? Okay, you are using CST. That's right. Okay, so if you are working on, you see, the electromagnetic solvers, then I think the basic procedure is that you first generate the structure or the model for the design that you want to implement, right? So you just go for the building up the geometry, and then the next step is that you define the various constants and variables, and you also assign various, you see, boundary conditions. You apply the boundary conditions, all right, and you assign the materials also. Whatever antenna you are designing, you are, for example, if you have the patch antenna, then you have the substrate, you have the conductor, patch conductor, or you might be using some nanomaterials, right? So you have to assign the materials also. Then after going through all these steps, then you develop the solution setup. You give the you just give the settings for finding the solution, and the next step is to solve. You just go for analyzing, and then post processing is the, observing the results. So in the second diagram, you can see that this is, for example, this is the 3D model. Model can be in 1 dimension, 2 dimension, or 3 dimensions, right? So we have this 3D model, and then I don't think you go into the meshing. I don't know, those who are working in this area, though, they look into the, meshing also. Generally, we just go for analysis and we go for looking for the field results. All right. Now, what thing is important is that, the designers, many times they are not aware of the mathematical modeling. What is happening? What equations are being generated in the back end. You just develop the models and you analyze it and you find out the results. And if your results are not correct, then you again go for modifying your design. You just change the dimensions, you just change the properties of the materials that you are using, right? So the designer, it is very important that he or she must be aware of the mathematical modeling, because there are certain steps which might be helpful in improving the accuracy of the results. For example, a very important parameter is the meshing part, right? So you see the meshing, meshing of the geometry that you are building up. So that must be very, fine, and that must be very proper. Proper in the sense that wherever you want that field variations should be large, there the meshing should be fine, and wherever you have the uniform structure, there the meshing can be very coarse. So the refinement of the geometry, the refinement of the meshing that you have generated, so that requires to be improved so as to improve the results. All right. So that is what is the importance of this particular lecture, what I'm going to discuss. So we will look into what is inside the electromagnetic solvers, which are helpful in improving your results. So in engineering design, if we talk about in general, we deal with number of physical problems like solid mechanics, fluid mechanics, in mechanical also mechatronics, heat transfer, electrostatics, electromagnetics. So all the physical problems, in general, they are formulated in terms of differential equations. Now, if you have a single variable, then the differential equation is called ordinary differential equation. And if you have number of, variables, then it is a partial differential equation. So how do we formulate the problem? The problem is defined, first of all, in terms of the partial differential equation, right? Corresponding to any problem, you first of all develop the partial differential equation, and then we define the shape of the solution region, and then we give the boundary conditions and the corresponding initial conditions. So this is how the problem is to be first of all defined. Now the next step, that you find the solution. So we have various solution methods. So like the very easy way is to just fabricate the design, right? So we go for experimental methods. Then we have analytical methods, and then we have the numerical methods. So we will discuss about all these methods one by one. Now, experimental methods, even if you are not working in this area, all of you must be knowing that we can simply go for fabricating the design that we want to, build up or generate, right? Now, experimental methods, you see, they are not brain consuming, but they are time consuming. Why? Because once you are not putting into your brain into looking into what should be the values of the parameters. You just go on, you are thinking about any antenna and you just go for fabrication, right? You don't look into what materials are to be used. Randomly you pick up the materials and you go for the design. Now this is going to be very time consuming, because once you find out the results, you see that it is not working in the way that you want to use, right? So the experimental methods, you see, they are not flexible in parameter variation. If you want to now improve your result, you will have to again fabricate it. All right. So there is no flexibility in parameter variation. So if the results are not correct, you will have to change the design. You will have to change the materials, right? So it is going to be expensive also. It is going to be consuming, and moreover, very important is sometimes it becomes hazardous also. All right. So the next option is that you first of all go for the mathematical formulation and find out what should be, like you are operating in particular frequency. For example, you want to design an antenna in microwave range. So corresponding to the microwave frequencies, you will find out if you have one particular operating frequency, then you can find out the length of your antenna. You can find out what should be the permittivity of the substrate material. You can find out what should be the thickness of the material. So analytical, analysis is very important. So analytical methods, they are basically the exact solutions. All right. So they find out once you have the partial differential equation available corresponding to any particular, area, right? So that differential equation is to be solved mathematically. So it is basically the mathematical solution of the differential equations. Now, analytical methods, that's very good that you directly go for finding out the solutions, but the limitation of analytical methods is that its application is limited only to simple problems using simple geometries. How do we define the simple problem? So if you are, geometry, that is simple. All right. If you are, materials, you are using the simple materials. Simple materials means if the whole of the geometry is to be assigned only one material. But in practical cases, you know that different domains of the different parts, they need to be assigned different materials, right? So complex, and if you are able to solve the complex problems, then that can be solved with number of assumptions. So these are the limitations of the analytical methods. Now this is the flow chart for the analytical method. So if you are using any analytical method, then how you will proceed? First of all, you will define your physical problem, and then you will build up the mathematical model, which is governed by the differential equations under the certain assumptions. Now, assumptions can be regarding to geometry. For example, you have very curved type of structure, then you can, corresponding to that, if you want to build up the geometry, you will approximate it as a linear geometry, right? So we will assume that our geometry is linear, and then we will carry out the mathematical formulations. As you solve differential equations, you must have gone through the number of types of differential equations where you just use number of assumptions. You assume that this parameter is nearly equal to 1. You assume that it is linear, right? So it can be the geometrical approximation, not approximation, we will not call it approximation, but it will be the assumption. Then regarding the materials, regarding the kinematics, regarding the boundary conditions. All right. So these are, the various assumptions which are taken up. Now, very important part of analytical method is that, the mathematical model which is developed, it is problem dependent. Depending upon the problem, the mathematical model is to be solved, right? Now, if we talk particularly about the computational electromagnetics, now in computational electromagnetics, you see, the classical methods or the analytical methods, they find the exact solutions for Maxwell's equations. You know that in electromagnetics, if you have any problem, then you have to formulate in terms of differential equations, which are the Maxwell's equations. So Maxwell's equations are to be solved. So we will first of all discuss about the various types of analytical methods which can be used for finding solutions for Maxwell's equations. So the first method that is being used is the integral transforms, that basically involves the Laplace and Fourier transforms to find the solution for Maxwell's equations. Now the second type of method is the separation of variables. Now separation of variables, now what is being done in this method? In this method, let us suppose that we have you see a partial differential equation which is involving number of variables, more than one variable. Then that partial differential equation is expressed as the product of, you see, ordinary differential equations. Each of one is dependent upon only one variable. All right. So in separation of variables, the partial differential equation is, you see, represented as the product of ordinary differential equations. And ordinary differential equations, since they are based on only single variable, so they can be solved easily, right? So it is a little improvement over the other method, that we can solve the little complex equations also by representing in terms of the simple equations. Now again, you see, one example here is first of all shown, and then we will discuss about the limitation. Now let us suppose that we have this equation which is called the Laplace's equation. So here you have the differential equation, partial differential equation involving the variables x and y. So we have the parameter u, which is dependent upon, which is a function of x and y. So here u, x, y can be expressed as the product of two functions, x, capital X, and capital Y, where capital X is a function of x only and y is a function of y only. So if we are able to split up this partial differential equation into two functions, then we can solve these you see, expressions separately, equations separately, and then take the product and you get the solution, right? So this will simplify your problem, but the limitation here is that, you see, it is applied only to the cases which can be expressed as the product of partial differential the ordinary differential equations, right? So generally we say that that can be fitted into orthonormal coordinate system. All right. So many times it is not possible to express the you see, partial differential equations in terms of the product, right? So that's why it has the limited utility. Now the third method is called the conformal transformation. Now what happens in conformal transformation? Now in conformal transformation, you see, a complex problem which is having a complex geometry that is simply mapped onto a simpler geometry. We simply transform the plane that we are using. If we have a complex plane, so it is transformed into the simple plane. So this is in fact the most powerful way of finding the solution for analytically, right? Now, first of all, I will show you how it is done, and then we will go to its again limitations. It is also having the limitations. Now in conformal mapping, here you can see we have a value, say a parameter, say omega or w. You can look it as w only, which is a complex parameter. So if w is a complex parameter which is expressed in complex plane, so w, that is u plus jv. Now if the parameter w is having a complex geometry, then it can be transformed into another plane, right? So if a particular value is to be determined at, say, one particular point in the plane corresponding to w, then its corresponding point in the z plane will be determining the value, right? So this is called the mapping a region in one plane onto another complex plane. So here the shape and the angles, they are preserved during the transformation. A very simple example is that let us suppose that we have the values of potential values, they are known to us. So we can develop a particular, we can just express the function if you want to determine the electric field strength, then we can define the corresponding relationship between potential and the field strength. So Z, that is a function of omega or W. So if W it is representing the potential, then we can find out how is it related to the field strength, say Z. Then after determining this relationship, we can perform the transformation, and directly that particular plane, on that particular plane, the values of field strength can be determined. So this is how conformal mapping is carried out. Again, this method is also having limitations. The first limitation is that it can be used for solving the problems in 2 dimensions. The mapping is to be done in 2 dimensions only, right? So again, there are also limitations of mapping functions. So if you are able to generate a particular relationship between the 2 parameters only, then you will be able to perform conformal mapping. Now, so overall, you see the various analytical methods that we have discussed, they have their limitations. So they are limited to simple models because of the computational complexity. On all the methods, we have quoted the limitations in one way or another. So all the analytical methods, they are limited because of the computational complexity. They can be applied to only simple problems, because many of the problems you see in electromagnetics that we face, they cannot be purely solved by the analytical methods, because real-time problems, they can have, you see, different boundary conditions on different portions of the boundary. And moreover, it is also possible that for complex cases, the analytical solutions, they do not converge. So it is very important that there should be convergence of the solution, right? So if it doesn't happen, then it will going to give you errors in the result, right? Now the third category of methods, that is the numerical methods. Now this is very important, because all of the electromagnetic solvers which are available in market, commercially which are available, they are based on the numerical methods only. Now in numerical methods, these are basically the approximation techniques. We generally call them approximation techniques. Now it is very important that whenever you see, I have also experienced that whenever we go for any interviews or we go for any vivas for PhD, so we have asked many times that if the researcher or the particular person is aware that once you know about the software, sometimes you know about the numerical techniques also, but you are not sure whether these are the analytical methods or they have some other technique, whether they are based on some other technique. So it is very important to have clarification that analytical methods, they are the exact solutions, whereas the numerical methods, these are the approximation techniques. So this should be very clear to everyone that all the electromagnetic solvers available commercially, they are based on the numerical techniques which are approximate techniques. These are the approximation methods. Now, how is the approximation method lecture? So if we talk about, you see, the numerical methods. Now numerical methods, you see, these are the approximation methods where you see the numerical technique, it is, you see, it is basically an iterative process here. The number of iterations to reduce, since it is an approximate solution, that is, it is not exact solution. So if it is not exact solution, if error is generated, then our purpose will be to do some improvement in the technique, That means we have to apply some iterations so as to reduce the error. So this is what is the background behind the numerical methods. So these are the approximate solutions. They can be used for complex problems. We can use, you see, complex geometries also. So we'll see what are the benefits of numerical techniques. But first of all, we will look into the brief flowchart for implementing the numerical technique. Again, you have the physical problem. So if you have the physical problem available, you develop the mathematical model governed by the differential equations, and then corresponding to the mathematical model, you will build up the numerical model. Now, an important difference you can see in classical method and numerical method here is that the numerical methods, they are problem independent, irrespective of the problem, find out the solution by iterations for reducing the errors. Important to select the mathematical model depending upon the response to be predicted. Depending upon the response, we can develop the model. Now this is the detailed flow chart for implementing the numerical method. Now these steps are again a problem. You will develop the mathematical model and then you will go for numerical model. Now as we have said that it is an iterative process. Now once you have you see if you and then finding out the result, then you will see whether the result is correct or not. Now your result is correct means whether it is accurate or not. We will not say that it is going to be an exact solution, but this will be very near to an exact one because it will be an accurate solution, right? So if your result is not accurate, then what you can do? You can first of all go for refinement, mesh refinements, which will, and then this part will be the iterative part. Coming the refinement, you are still not for design improvements. That's what I was saying earlier, that the researchers normally what they are doing is they go for building up a particular design, and you see that your results are not correct, you just go for varying the various parameters. You go directly jump to this step, whereas the first thing required is that you can first of all do the refinement. Also you can parameter. So what should be the size of the elements selected? We will see in the later slides what is the element and how is it important. So after improving the refinement, only then you should go for design improvements, and obviously your physical problem that will be changing. So this step will be performed later on. So again, the applications of numerical techniques in electromagnetics, they are used for designing antennas, circuits, microwave structures, simulation of scattering, diffraction problems, solution for the bioelectromagnetics. Many biomedical problems are also being solved by performing the simulations in softwares. Many softwares, they are multi-physics, which generate the models for the electromagnetic problem, also for biological problem. So that is called the interaction of the EM fields with biological parameters, that is called bioelectromagnetics. So those all those models can be solved in coupled way. So the coupled problem, a number of softwares which use the coupling. Not only biological, you have the chemical physics software. In CST also we have the multi-physics modules available. So first of all, we will classify the various numerical techniques, and then we will go into the details of some of the techniques. Now in electromagnetic analysis, so as we have just said that we can have analytical techniques or we can have the numerical techniques. Now numerical techniques, these are iterative techniques and these are based on Maxwell's equations. Now you know that the Maxwell's equations, these can be expressed in differential form as well as in integral form. So if you are using the differential equations, then the numerical techniques which are used, they are finite difference method, and you have the another technique is finite element method. So as I had asked you earlier, HFSS software that is based on finite element method. And if we are using the integral equations for finding the approximate function, then the method used is the boundary element method of movement. Like CST software, it is based on, you see, method of movements. In fact, the commercially available software, they are not these days based on one particular method, they are using the hybrid techniques. These are the names of various methods. So the advantage, what is the advantage of using the numerical techniques? Using the numerical techniques, you can simulate your model and find out the solutions, right? So it is having the advantage that it allows the user to find out the results without having any knowledge about the mathematical modeling. I'm sure that those who are working in the design area, designing of electromagnetic structures or antennas, they do not go into what knowing about, you don't even have the curiosity of knowing which mathematical expression is being solved for finding the values of the fields or S parameters. You directly go for simulating that, yes, this is S11 and you have the variation with respect to frequency. So which particular differential equation is being solved in the back end, so that is, we are not concerned. In fact, this is the benefit of the numerical simulation, that we don't have to go into the knowledge of the mathematics behind the softwares. So it is going to be, naturally, it is going to be time saving, it is cost saving, and we can go for optimizations also. Now, the basic steps involved in the solution procedure, they are generally divided into 3 phases. The first stage is called pre-processing, the next stage is called analysis, and the third stage is called post-processing. I hope I am audible to all, because
yes, madam.
I keep. Okay. So now in pre-processing, what is done is to define derive the coefficients in algebraic equations. You develop the mathematical model, you build up the geometry. So all that is done is pre-processing stage. Once you have developed the mathematical and the numerical model, then you go for finding the solution. So the solution part is called the analysis. And in post-processing, we interpret the results. Sometimes basic parameters, they are automatically generated, and you have to find out all other parameters by using various types of methods in the software. We will go for the elaborative details also in these 3 steps. Like in pre-processing, you draw the geometry, define the constants, assign the materials, you give the excitations, and then you assign the boundaries. So all these steps, they are performed in pre-processing. So then we have the field solver. Solver will perform the meshing part. It will first of all divide the model into different elements, and then you see it will the solution is determined on one particular element, and then all the elements, they will be collected together, and that is called finding the global solution, and then the complete matrix equation that is solved for. So I think this will not be clear right now. When we go into the details of various techniques, then this part will be clear to you. And then we have the field plots, basic parameters, they are evaluated. electric and magnetic field, and then we go for return loss, you go for radiation patterns, you go for finding out the gain and all other parameters that you want. Now we will discuss out of all the methods that we have named. So we will broadly, I will concentrate on the two particular methods, which are the finite difference time domain method, and second is the finite element method. So what is finite difference time domain method? Now this method, you see, it was developed by Yee in 1966 to find out the solution for Maxwell's equations. Now since it is a numerical technique, so it will not it will be an approximation technique. That means we will have to approximate something. So what is approximated here? In finite difference time domain method, the operator that is you see approximated. So it will this scheme, it will find out the various fields between the consecutive you see nodes. So again you see I think I can skip this because I will go to the method only implementation, then it will be clear to all of you. So what is finite difference method? Now you see in finite difference method, the first step you see is the meshing part. In all the numerical techniques, in fact, the procedure that is followed is that whole domain that is divided into smaller elements. Whether it is a one-dimensional problem, whether it is your two-dimensional, the geometry is in two-dimensional plane, or whether it is in three-dimensional, the first step is that your domain, it is discretized into smaller elements. Now, if we, for example, if we have, you see, 1D problem, so the you see single you see domain, or if you have a linear element, so if we having a linear structure, then that particular structure, suppose we have the wire, right? So if we have a wire, then it is divided into smaller elements, and here these particular points where the field parameters they are determined, these are called the nodes. That means if you have to find what is the field over the whole wire, so first of all we will evaluate the field parameters at particular node points, and then that is going to be generalized for the whole domain. All right. So if we have in two-dimensional, for example, this is the structure, then 2D structure that is discretized in space using the Cartesian grid. That means you just have a rectangular coordinate system superimposed over Cartesian grid. So the finite difference method, it is based on structured meshing. This type of meshing is called the structure, dividing the whole domain into smaller elements. This is called mesh generation. And structured, they are of same dimension. At finite number of points, you see the various parameters, they are computed over the whole domain. That means first of all the field parameter onto the Cartesian grid, and the various mesh points or the nodes, they are identified, and the field is determined, or the parameter is determined at these particular points. This is called the discretization process. Now if we talk about the three-dimensional domain, then the whole domain, it is divided into, you see, 3D elements, and each element here is called the cell, which is after the name of its originator, designer, it is called Yee cell. So each particular cell, you see, that is called the Yee cell, and the found the Yee cell. So now, as I was saying that it numerical technique, so we have to approximate something. So what is to be approximated? That here, since we are working on the if we have a partial differential equation, then the derivative, a continuous derivative, that is expressed as a difference function. So this is what is the approximation which is used in finite difference method. We replace the continuous derivative with finite difference. The derivatives, you see, in time as well as space, both are approximated. So this is the differential related. Then this will be expressed as a difference function. A value of f, which is a function of independent variable x. So both are expressed as the difference functions. So how the solution is determined? If once we have expressed it as a difference function, then the solution can be determined by using the central difference formula, which says that, let us suppose that we have 3 nodes at xi. We have xi minus xi plus h. Then the value of the function f at xi can be determined in terms of the consecutive values at consecutive nodes at xi minus h and xi plus h by using the central difference formula. So this formula is used for finding out the solution. So let's take one example. So let this be the differential equation, d square f by dx square plus. So here we use the conditions that f0 equal to, it is same as f1, which is equal to 0. So at the ends, the value of the functional, that is 0. So what is the first step which is to be carried out? Now this is since it is a function of only one parameter, so we have the linear domain. So this linear domain will be first of all discretized into steps. Suppose here we have the 5 steps. Now we know the values at the 2 endpoints. Now how to find out the values at k equal to 1, at node k equal to 1, k is equal to 2 and k is equal to 3. So for that we can use the central difference formula. So using the central difference formula, f, you see 1 that can be determined in terms of the values at f0 and f2. Then at k is equal to 1 and k is equal to 3. Similarly, k equal to 3, f3 can be determined in terms of f2 and f4. So we can write the corresponding expressions. So these are the 3 equations that we get, and then we can find out the solution for finding the values at the discrete points. Now this particular, you see, method can be extended to 2-dimensional partial derivative. See the 2-dimensional domain, that is, you see the sample in this domain, you can see that the central point is ij. So we have to express this ij in terms of the consecutive node points. These are, you see, text is not visible.
Yes, ma'am. Few equations are not visible, and audio there is a little in between.
Okay.
It's
Audio
clear,
not
madam,
clear?
but in between 1 or 2 words just we are missing. Like,
Audio
maybe
is
because of bandwidth.
also the equations in black. Maybe those are not visible. So these equations are visible or not?
Yes, ma'am. They're visible. Yes.
The black one is not visible, I think.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Okay. So the basic formulation, therefore, now so that can be applied on electromagnetics. So in electromagnetics, you know that the governing equations are again the Maxwell's equations. So Maxwell's equations, These can be solved using the central difference formulation as we have discussed. So if we have suppose we have the field parameters, say electric field strength or magnetic field strength, differences expressed as the difference formula. So similarly, if we have 3D equations, they can also be expressed as the difference equations. We will take example of you see one-dimensional equation, then we will see how we can find out the solution. So let us suppose that we have 1D equations, Maxwell's equation. So these are either in TE or TM modes, corresponding to TE or TM modes. So if in this case you can see that since we have here we have HY, let me see, curl Y, okay.
Steven.
Yeah, okay. So if we write the corresponding, you see, differential equations first of all. Yes. Now these expressions, as we have said, that we can first of all express these expressions as the difference equations, right? So now difference equations here, let us suppose that we have the value defined at nth node, say. So you see we have the value of fields between En and En plus 1 and Hn and Hn plus 1. Now we have, you see, we are expressing the expressions as the difference equations in time domain as well as in space domain, right? So we have Hi minus 1, Hi plus 1, similarly Ei plus 1 and Ei minus 1, right? Now I think I will show you the diagram first, then it will be clear to you. Now here you can see, the field parameter expressed as a function of t. All right. Now we are here discretizing. First of all, the domain is being discretized into various, elements, and we have the node points defined, right? Now if we have to determine the field at one particular, point in space, say I. So correspondingly, we are determining in time domain, we are using the steps as n minus 1, n minus 1 by 2, n plus 1 by 2, and n plus 1. So value of E or H will be defined in space at I corresponding to the time step n minus 1. Similarly, we have in X domain, in space domain, we have the value defined at I minus half, and correspondingly, we can select the particular time step. So we write the corresponding expressions, and then these expressions, these basic equations can be rearranged to obtain the field at the node, say n plus 1. So n plus 1, in fact, it is in time domain. So we determine the value at Ei at the time step n plus 1 in terms of the values at time steps n and n minus 1, right? So obviously, if we have determined the field at a particular time step n, then we have this value as the known value, and the field at n plus 1, the next time step, can be expressed in terms of these known values. So once we know the value at n plus 1, then we can determine the value of the field parameter at n plus 2 in terms of n plus 1. So this is how the expressions, they are, expressed as the difference equations, and then they can be solved for. Now what is important, in finite difference time domain method is that, E and H fields, they are, not calculated at the same point. That means if we have selected one particular node, then both E and H are not determined at the same nodes, but there is an offset, right? So we use an offset of 1/2 in space as well as time, right? So if we have dx, so we will define the field. If we are defining the electric field at dx by 2 and dt by 2, then H will be determined at the other points, say dx and dt, right? So this is called this method is called the leapfrog stepping, right? Where the E and H field, they are determined at an offset of 1/2. So here you can see that E field and H field, like here the red dots, they determine the E field, and white dots, these are the H field. So these are alternatively determined at an offset of 1/2 in space as well as in time domain. So now, since this method, it is a time domain method, so obviously we need to have a time domain source. So the source which is generally used, that is the Gaussian pulse. You have the expression for the Gaussian function. So this source is you see imposed onto the geometry, and then you can find the solution. So this is applied. Now you see the sources in finite difference time domain method we define as a hard source and the soft source. Now what is a hard source? In case of hard source, the field you see that is fixed by the equation. Once you have decided that your source is going to be a Gaussian source, then at the particular node, at one particular node, you can apply the source at any of the nodes in the domain. So, but once you have selected that your Gaussian pulse will be applied at that particular node, so that is going to be fixed. So this is called the hard source. Now, alternatively, we can have you see soft source also, which needs the input from the other nodes also. So here the interaction between the various nodes that will be required. So this is the second way of assigning the source in FDTD method. Then very important part is the boundary conditions, which are called the absorbing boundary conditions. Now, what is the importance of absorbing boundary conditions? Now, in a practical case, once you have the antenna, so it will be radiating in an open space, right? But if you have to determine you have to design your antenna and determine the performance beforehand. So as we say that we are going for numerical techniques. Now, in numerical techniques, you are using the softwares and you are developing your model in one particular, using one particular software, right? So once you have built up the geometry, right, and you are finding the solution, and if we are assuming that your geometry, the model that you have designed, this is simulated, and it will be radiating in open space. So is it possible? So is it possible? Yes, can anyone tell me? If you have, what is the importance of absorbed boundary conditions? So if you have designed any problem without using the boundary conditions, so what will happen? So what is going to happen? Yes, can anyone tell me? What is going to happen if you have designed your model and not use the absorbed boundary conditions? Do you know if you design reflection plus interference, how will it going to reflect? You have not used, you are simulating your antenna and you are running the simulation. So how it is going to reflect? In case of numerical technique, we are using a software. We are not talking about the fabricating the antenna and then making it to radiate after giving excitation. Once you have simulated your design and you see you run the simulation, it is, you see, what will happen that the solution is not going to converge. Why? Because as we have said that first of all your geometry that is to be discretized. So if you have not the value before 0th element will be non-zero. You see, once you have discretized your domain, so if you have not limited the boundary, then your whole available space that is going to be discretized and your simulation will be running for infinite number of elements. So it is not going to, we have to, if we have to, you see, simulate it in practical case, that's fine that you have to radiate in infinite space. But if you have to simulate it, you will have to bind it in certain particular, you see, area so that you can run the simulations. Otherwise, you will have infinite number of elements and your, you see, the iterations will go on infinitely, right? So we will have to bind it in some particular region because the computers, they cannot store the unlimited amount of data. So we have to limit our solution regions. So that's why you see that is the importance of absorbed boundary conditions. So these basically are used to limit the solution region, so that now practically you want that your results should be such that it should be corresponding to the radiations in infinite space. So what type of boundaries we can use for having an illusion of infinite space? The first type of boundary condition is called the Moore's boundary condition. Now these are the boundary conditions which are derived directly from the wave equations. So how is it done? In this case, you see the expression, it is converted into an equation. The wave equation is converted into an equation which will be representing the waves which are traveling in only one particular direction, right? So that if the wave is traveling in, suppose, positive direction, that means there is no reflection in the opposite direction. So if the wave is traveling in one direction, it will be considered as a wave which is going infinitely, right? So another type of boundary condition which is used is called, another method which is used is called perfectly matched layer. Now in this case, what is done is that we put an absorber around the domain. If you are developing any model, then you define the boundary also, and we assign an absorber around the domain which will you see absorb all the radiations coming from the antenna. So that will dampen the outgoing fields. So these are the two types of boundary conditions which are used. And PML layers, you see, that is a better method for assigning the absorbed boundary conditions. Now the second method, which is a very important method and which is currently being used by most of the softwares. In fact, the softwares which are working on conventionally, which were earlier working on one particular method, they are using the hybridization with finite element method also, because it offers a number of flexibilities that we will see. Now this method, finite element method, if you talk to civil engineers and mechanical engineers, they have studied the course on finite element method, because it was earlier being used for designing the civil structures as well as for mechanical structures. In aeroplanes also, you see, for modeling the aircrafts, finite element method was being used. Now if we talk about in electronics or electrical engineering, so it was first of all firstly used by P. Sylvester in 1969. So it came into the electrical and electronic applications after, you see, 1969. So it is a computational technique which is used to obtain the approximate solutions of boundary value field problems in engineering. So FEM, you see, how does it evaluate, how does it solve the differential equations? Now again, since it is an approximation technique, we have to approximate something. We will see what is approximated, but first of all, we will look into the definition. The theoretical definition says that it evaluates differential equations curve by using a number of polynomial curves to follow the shape of underlying and complex differential equation curve. We'll see what is the meaning of this definition. But first of all, the procedure. What procedure is followed? Again, it is a numerical technique. So first of all, the whole domain, it is discretized into finite number of elements, as we have done in finite difference time domain method also. Then deriving the governing equations for a single element, and then assembling all the elements to form metric equation. So very important part of FEM is that the whole mathematical model which is generated, so that is formulated in terms of matrix equations. So here the matrix equation that is solved, the system of equations, they are solved. Now the implementation of finite element method, first of all, it needs to discretize the domain. The common type of elements which are used, they are, you see, we can have one-dimensional elements. If the domain is single dimensional, that can be rods, beams, frames. It can be in 2 dimensions. The shapes of the elements can be triangular or quadrilateral. So this is the difference you must have observed. In finite difference time domain method, we had rectangular elements only, and the elements they are of same size. But in case of finite element method, there is flexibility of using different shapes of elements. We can go for different shapes of element. These are the basic ones, but we can have other shapes also. And in 3 dimensions, the corresponding shape for triangular, that will be the tetrahedral, and for quadrilateral, it's going to be a rectangular prism. Now, if we compare, we will first of all compare the 2 methods, and then we will see the formulation of finite element method. Now, very important is that the finite difference method, that is suitable for linear problems and regular geometry, whereas the finite element method, that is suitable for linear as well as non-linear problems without having any restriction of geometry. Why is it so? In case of FDTD, we had seen that we can only use rectangular type of meshing, which is called a structured meshing. The elements, as I have told you, that elements they have the one particular shape only, that can be rectangles. You see, in conventional FDTD method, which was earlier used, the grid was exactly the same. We were not using the variation in the size of the elements also. But currently, you see, FDTD, number of modifications have been done on FDTD also. Like I will show you one slide. Now, this is, for example, let us suppose that this is a microstrip line, and this is the boundary. As I told you that we have to first of all limit the boundary. So here, you see this particular now the geometry is not only the microstrip line, but it is this domain also. So once you have developed this geometry, it is going to be discretized. Now, in case of FDTD, earlier the rectangular Cartesian grid was used, but nowadays you see the size of the elements that can be varied. The softwares, they have the facility that the size of the elements that can be varied. Now what happens is, wherever the field variation is expected to be there, for example, now here you don't we don't expect that there will be variation in field. So variation in field will be where you have the conducting part and you have the edges. So wherever there is the conducting part and the edges, there the meshing can be made, you see, fine. The size of elements can be reduced so that we can have an improvement of result. So here there is not going to be variation, so we can compromise on the, we can increase, in fact decrease the computational time, increase the reducing the effort, and reducing the computational time, we can have larger elements, right? The element size can be more so that lesser number of nodes are there and lesser computations are required to be done, right? So wherever you don't expect that there is going to be variation, there you can have the bigger elements to reduce the computational efforts. Now, in the initial slides, I told you that meshing is a very important step. You can improve the accuracy also. In fact, many times you don't, you generate the errors and you are not able to understand what is the reason. You randomly go on varying your dimensions of the design. Now, an important point for meshing is that the largest mesh cell, that should not be bigger than 1/10 of the smaller wavelength. Repeat slide 45 and 46. Just hold on.
Madam, sorry to interrupt in between.
Not at all, not at all. 45. Yes,
yeah.
I have not discussed all the steps, all the points of difference in this slide. I'm just showing the FDTD meshing, and then I will come back to 45, right? Mr. Banerjee, just 46 is enough. Yes, I'm discussing about the meshing used in finite difference time domain method, and then we will come back to 45.
Madam, just can you repeat this slide number 46?
Yeah, sure.
I was not getting it. Just
Sure.
for.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to repeat it. Yes, I'm going to repeat it. Now this is, for example, we have the strip line. We can have any particular structure, right? So if this is a particular structure which is to be designed, so if we use finite difference time domain method, then first of all, you will have to use the boundary. Absorbed boundary conditions will be used. You have limited your solution domain up to this one, right? So this is your solution domain. So what is done in finite difference time domain method is that whole domain is divided into rectangular elements. Now, I was telling that in earlier conventional finite difference time domain method, we use the Cartesian coordinate system in which obviously the size of the elements will remain the same. But in advanced finite difference time domain methods, what we can do is that we have the flexibility in the size of the elements. The size of the element can be reduced. You can see that here in this area, the size of the element is less as compared to the element size in this area. What is the reason? That because wherever you have you see, for example, you are giving the excitation at this end. So field variations will be available. There will be variations in the field wherever you have the conducting part and at the edges also. So near this structure, you will expect the field variations. But outside this, the field is going to be uniform. So wherever the field variations are expected, you can reduce the size of the elements, and in the outer domains, the element size can be large. So this will simply reduce the computational effort. And for accurate results, obviously for accurate results, you will need to determine the field values at closer points. But you cannot go on reducing the size of element. The size of the element must be greater than the 1/10 of the smallest wavelength corresponding to the operating frequency, right? And also it is required that for creating a smooth mesh, the neighboring cells should not have abrupt change in the sizes, right? The cell size should not exceed by a factor of more than 2. That means one cell size should not be, you see, more than having the size more than 2 times the previous cell. The neighboring cells should be, their size should be smoothly increasing, right? The size of the elements should be increasing or decreasing smoothly. Abrupt variation in the size should not be there. Now this part, you see, you are not, in fact the softwares, they are automatically performing this meshing part. You don't have to go into looking for these points, but you must know, because many times if your solution, you are getting the errors, what happens is that the size of the element that becomes less than the wavelength corresponding to the operating frequency. So that is why it is important. So there should be an adequate distance to an absorbed boundary conditions. This is also important, that your structure should be placed proportionate to the boundary that you have selected. It should not be that you have a very small size of antenna and your boundary is very away. Similarly, it should not be very closer to your absorbed boundary conditions. So it should be designed proportionately. Is this clear? I think. Am I audible and is it clear? I hope it is clear. Can anyone write in chat box? Okay. That's fine. Now, I will also show you another meshing and then we will go back to the differences. From where now? From this slide? Yeah. From this slide? Yes. Yes. Anyone?
Sorry to interrupt, madam. Sorry to interrupt. I'm Torse. Professor Torse. Madam, actually, as per the schedule, because of issue, participants are. The topic is very nice, interesting. It is going. Madam, can you continue for another 15 minutes? I just talked with the next speaker who is supposed to start at 12 o'clock.
Actually, we had started a little late also because of network issue.
Yes,
so I have 15 minutes, that means.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I have to fold up in 15 minutes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I will continue till you have time. Otherwise, we can have those who are interested in the.
That's why I talked with the next speaker, and he said it's okay.
It's okay. Because I think I have so far I am at 48 slide. I have 90 slides almost, 85 to 90. Yeah. So now if we talk about the classification of meshes, like we have said that in FTTD, the rectangular meshing is being used, right? Rectangular elements are being used. Now, in case of FEM and method of movements, the unstructured mesh, that is the elements, you see, they can be, there is flexibility in the shapes of elements. They can be linear as well as they can be curved also. So that is the beauty of finite element method, that it offers the flexibility in the shape, size, as well as in the you see, curvature of the elements. So that's why you see FEM method that is being preferred for design parts. So this type of meshing is called unstructured mesh. But currently, again, as I've told you, that softwares, they are, you see, all the softwares, they are using the hybrid methods, and the softwares are also using hybrid meshes. It is not particular. In case of finite element, we can use rectangular elements also. So wherever mesh, wherever the field variations is less, there we can go for structured mesh, and wherever the field variations are large, there we can use the triangular elements. This is how hybrid meshing can be adopted in case of finite element method and other methods. Now we will go to other differences. Now, depending upon the meshing, as I have told you, that in case of finite difference time domain method, since we have structured meshing, so it is difficult to model the curved structures. So it is very important that if we have any curvature in your design, then it is to be modeled correctly so as to have an accurate result. So there, now you can also understand where the errors can be generated. We were saying that you have to reduce the errors, right? So if you have to reduce the errors, what are the possible steps? Where the errors will be generated? At what particular steps errors can be generated? So one error can be generated that once you have discretized your domain, your actual domain can be different from the you see, approximated domain, because you are dividing your domain into fixed elements, fixed shape elements. So in case of FTTD method, it is not suitable for curved structures, whereas finite element method can be used for curved structures also, because it is based on polynomial functions and we can use higher order polynomials also. That we will see later on. Now, finite difference method, it approximates the operator. So as I told you that the partial derivative is expressed in terms of difference functions in case of finite difference method. Whereas the finite element method, it uses the exact operators, but how does it find out the solution? It approximates the solution. In this case, a functional is approximated, and that functional, you see, that is minimized for reducing the errors. So that we will see once we go for solution finding. Then finite difference time domain method, it is a time domain method. So it can obtain response over wide range of frequencies simply by using Fourier transforms. Whereas the finite element method, you see, it is a frequency domain method. It can determine response at one particular frequency by using the set of matrix equation. Now, if you have to find the solution at other frequencies, you use the sweep function. So there is a facility of sweep analysis. We just give a range of frequencies, and if you are using the softwares, you just look into the convergence and the progress. Wherever you can look into the progress, you see there you can see the number of elements are also mentioned. Then how many iterations are being performed, that is also mentioned, right? And you see the whole set of equations that is first of all solved at one particular frequency, and then depending upon what range you have taken with what discrete step, you have to give the particular step also. That, for example, if you have to solve for one particular range, say 1 gigahertz to we will take the X band, say 8 gigahertz to 12 gigahertz. Then you have to mention the sweep, that after 8 you have to evaluate the values, all the field parameters at 8.1 gigahertz. So the same set of equations will then be solved for 8.1 gigahertz. So many times it takes a lot of time, maybe many hours. Sometimes it takes 24 hours to 48 hours to run all the simulations. The bigger the sweep, the more time will be required. The shorter the steps, more time will be required. So whenever you are using the softwares, so if you have to first find out whether your design is okay or not, you can use the bigger steps. After 8, you can find the value at 8.5, then at 9 gigahertz, then at 9.5. Once you get the correct results, then you can reduce the size of the step and increase the number of steps for finding the final solution. So this will reduce your computational efforts. This is very important, that you can, if you have to try for number of designs, then you can first of all use coarser mesh. One simpler step that you can use is that you can increase the element size. Though your result is not going to be accurate, but still you will able to find out whether you have got the particular correct design parameters or not. If your design is having impedance matching, once you look into for impedance matching. So once the impedance matching is properly done, then you can go for, you see, finer mesh for finding the accurate results. Second thing is that you see, you can compromise on the, you can use the sweep with lesser number of steps. So these are the differences between the two methods. So obviously, as we have discussed, that finite element method, it is very suitable for complex shapes. So we can very easily and conveniently design the complex designs with having variable materials. If your domain is composed of composite materials, then it can be modeling can be easily done using finite element method. Now, the basic concept of finite element method, you see, as we have said, that we have to first of all discretize the domain. So this shows, for example, if we have any parameters, say displacement, temperature, pressure, so that can be approximated by a discrete model, a continuous function. This, for example, temperature distribution is shown over here. So temperature is varying continuously here with respect to say time, or or it can be in space also, the temperature variation as a function of space, right? So this is the exact analytical solution, right? So once the domain is discretized into smaller steps, so smaller elements, so here the expression or the equations will be formulated for one element, and all these equations are then collected together to find the approximate solution. So this will give you the approximate solution. Now, as I told you that finite element method, it is suitable for curved boundaries also. So how is it possible? In case of finite element method, we have said that we approximate a functional. So the functional which is to be approximated, generally, that depends upon the type of element that we are using. And element types, corresponding to the element type, the corresponding polynomial function that is constructed. So what is happening is that depending upon the shape of the element, the various polynomial functions, they are defined and they are used to construct the approximation functions for each element, right? So depending upon the order of approximation, different number of element parameters they are needed to construct the appropriate function. Now what does that mean? Now if we are using for example, if we are using the triangular element, so it is having linear edges. A triangular element is having linear edge, right? Now in finite element method, it is possible that since if we have a linear element, right? So linear edge, sorry, not the element. If you have the linear edges of one particular element, then its corresponding expression will be a linear expression, right? So it is a particular polynomial function that will be defined for each element. Now it is possible that we can have a second order polynomial. Now if we have a second order polynomial, then the elements, the edges of the elements will be corresponding. If we plot it, then the edges will be a little bit curved. Now if we have third order polynomial, then the curvature that will increase, right? So instead of, now if we have triangular element, then we have first point here, second and third point at this point, say. right? Now, if we have the quadratic expression, then the element is said to be a quadratic one, where a third point, the values of the parameters, all the field parameters will be determined at additional point. This is another node which will be generated. And if you have the cubic polynomial, then two more nodes will be inserted. The field parameters will be determined at these 2 points also. But so what will be the advantage? That you will be able to model the curved structures. So the finite element method gives you the flexibility of using the linear elements and the non-linear elements. We can have the curved edges of the elements also, because they are approximated by the polynomial functions, and we can vary the order of polynomials. So this is how the curved boundaries, they are handled by the finite element method. So this shows the two-dimensional discretization in 2D, how the elements are to be developed. Now, if we now go into the two-dimensional discretization, so let us suppose that we have a two-dimensional domain and field is to be determined anywhere at any point within this domain. So let the field parameter be, say, phi xy. So it is to be determined at any point within the domain. Then first of all, the whole domain is divided into various elements. Now these are the elements, and this is one particular element which is having the nodes as 1, 2, and 3. So the field will be first of all expressed or determined at these 3 node points. Now let phi 1, phi 2, and phi 3 be the values of the field variables at the nodes. Yes, any query? Okay. Now.
No, ma'am. I muted him.
Okay. Now.
No, ma'am. No.
Okay, fine. I will continue. So as we have said that, now if we have the triangular element, then the field will be first of all determined at these 3 points, right? These 3 node points. Let the field values are phi 1, phi 2, and phi 3. Now what happens is here that now the interpolation functions are first of all defined, and these interpolation functions will describe the variation of the field variable within the finite element. That means that depending upon the shape of the element, a particular shape function that will be defined, and the field will be first of all evaluated at these 3 points, and using the field variation at these 3 points, field within the particular element that will be determined. So how it will be determined? It will be dependent upon the shape function. If we have a rectangular element, then our shape function will be different, and obviously the field phi xy will be expressed in terms of phi 1, phi 2, and phi 3 using the different shape function. So what is that expression? Now here you can see the field variable in general phi xy can be defined as n1 xy phi 1, n2 xy phi 2 plus n3 xy phi 3. Now what are n1, n2, n3? These are basically the interpolation functions or the shape functions. This is important that now this shape function will be different for different shapes of the elements. Now depending upon the shape of the elements, these functions will be defined, and these will be multiplied by the field values at the 3 points, and then we can generalize the field everywhere in the interior of the element, right? Now another important parameter in numerical techniques which are used is called the degree of freedom. Now what do we mean by degree of freedom? Degree of freedom means that the number of node points which can be used for determining the field variation anywhere within the element. So that is called the degree of freedom. For example, if you have the triangular element 1, 2, 3, so as we have said that we have to first of evaluate fields at 1, 2, and 3 so as to find field variation anywhere within the element. So it has 3 degrees of freedom. Now, instead of linear element, if we have curvilinear, for example, if you have a second order polynomial function, then you will have intermediate nodes also. In between 1 and 2, we will have quadratic polynomial. If we take quadratic polynomial, so we have seen that we have another point here. So then that will be, you see, modeling the curve structure. So if we have intermediate node, so we will have now 6 points at which the field is to be determined so as to find out field anywhere within the element. So in that case, if you use the quadratic polynomial, in that case, the degrees of freedom will be now 6. So this is how you determine the degree of freedom. Now, anyone can tell me if we have an exact solution, how many degrees of freedom will be there? If you know the domain and the field values at every point, then what will be the number of degrees of freedom for exact solution? Yes, anyone? No. The number of degrees of freedom in case of, yes, 2. No. If you have, if you have to find out the solution, right? And you see, if you have a continuous domain, then for a continuous domain, a field is required to be determined at all the points so that you can express it. So it will have infinite degrees of freedom. Once you have discretized into steps, only then the degrees of freedom that will be limited. So if we have a continuous domain and you have the continuous value determined at continuous all the points, so values at all the points will be required to express it, to express the exact solution. So a domain, in that case, it will be having infinite degrees of freedom. So that is the finite element method can in fact be defined in terms of degrees of freedom also. It is that a continuous function of a continuum having infinite degrees of freedom is replaced by discrete model with finite degrees of freedom. So this is another definition of finite element method. We'll skip it now. The method, the basic steps, they are again discretization, formulation of expressions, then assembling, then imposition of boundary conditions, and then finding the solution. So these are the steps. I will skip little slides so as to complete within the time span. So these are once you see, if we have a two-dimensional domain, so as I have explained that first of all the field values are to be determined in terms of these nodes only. They are determined at the node points, and then field can be expressed within. So how is it done? This domain here shows 4 different elements, 1, 2, 3, 4. So all the node points are also you see mentioned here, and each element, you see, it is having 3 nodes. So we can express the field variable, whatever field we want to determine, that can be expressed at these 3 node points using the expression a plus bx plus cy. This is the linear approximation. We are using the linear element. For nonlinear, we will have a nonlinear relationship, and for rectangular element, we will have an the different expression. This is you see, for the 3 node points, we can define the interpolation relationship phi1, phi2, and phi3, and then these expressions can be now solved for the values of a, b, c. Once we have phi1, phi2, phi3, then we can find out a1, a2, a3, b1, b2, b3, and c1, c2, c3, and the expression can be now expressed in the form of shape function and the field at one particular node. So we have now, if you can see this shape function is determined by the values of these coefficients. So here you have a1, a2, and a3 in terms of x, y, and z, x and y, sorry. I think I will skip some of the slides. Now, as I've told you that, let us suppose that we have in electromagnetics, if we talk about the potential, if the potential is to be determined, then for rectangular element, the expression used is A plus Bx plus Cy, and for triangular element, triangular element, you use A plus Bx plus Cy, and for rectangular or quadrilateral element, you have the expression as A plus Bx plus Cy plus Dxy. So in that case, you will have to find 4 different coefficients A, B, C, and D for deriving the governing equations. So we can, as we have said that now, in earlier I had told you that in finite element method, all the expressions, they are expressed in matrix form. So once you have defined the nodes 1, 2, and 3, and you have to find the potentials VE1, VE2, and VE3, then each expression VE1, depending upon the shape of the element, you have the interpolation function expressed in terms of coefficients ABC and X1, Y1. Similarly for node 2 and node 3. Now we can write all these algebraic expressions in the form of matrix. So these matrices are generated and the solutions are determined. So now we can, once we find out the values of ABC, they can be put in this matrix form, and we have in this matrix, you have these values of ABC, which basically determine the shape functions. These are called the shape functions alpha 1, alpha 2, and alpha 3, right? Now, once you have formulated the expressions, the next step is to find the solutions. Now, to find the solutions, in finite element method, it is based on variational principles. That is, you see, the differential and the integral equations, they can be formulated based on the variational methods. Now, what is done is variational principle. It is based on basically converting the differential equation into a functional, and that functional is minimized for reducing the errors. So there are 2 types of variational methods, direct and indirect. So in direct method, you see, if we have any differential equation, suppose this is the differential equation. So in, you see, direct method, it is also called Rayleigh-Ritz method. So the Rayleigh-Ritz method, what does it do? Directly we define the functional based on this differential equation. You can see that the functional, it has been derived from this differential equation. So you approximate a particular functional. Now let us suppose that this functional is having a solution phi x, right? So here we make this functional to satisfy the differential equation. All right. So once you have approximated a functional, then it is going to have some solutions. So if we approximate a solution, we say that phi x is the solution of this functional. So it is made to, obviously, if it is not an exact solution, it will going to generate the errors. So once the errors are generated, we keep on improving this solution so as to satisfy the corresponding differential equation. So this is called the direct method. Now in the second method, which is also called the weighted residual method. So in weighted residual method, what is done is, depending upon the differential equation, we define a residual. Residual means some error. So if L phi is equal to F, so this is satisfying this particular differential equation is satisfying, it is completely being satisfied. Now if L phi, yes, which of these you had solved using own coding MATLAB or Python? You see, I had since I did my PhD long back, so I had used C coding in C, as well as you see Fortran. We used to use Fortran for finding the solutions. So MATLAB has come along. You see, it is quite new, but I have guided some PhD as well as PG students. We have MATLAB codes are available for finding the conventional solutions. All the computational electromagnetic techniques, they are available in, in MATLAB, we have number of programs. I think one book is also there. I will share later on with Dr. Datta Prasad. There is a book available which is having the MATLAB codes for finding the solutions of numerical methods, right? The finite element method, as well as to understand the basics, it's better that you go for MATLAB coding. It is difficult to do now in C because in MATLAB you have predefined functions available. So it is very easy to perform formulations in MATLAB these days. So in residual, you see, we develop a residue. Let us suppose if we have a particular, we have approximated the solution. Basically what we are doing, we are assuming that phi x is the solution. So obviously if it is not exact, then some error. Residual is basically an error. So some error will be generated, and then again we will go on reducing the error by changing the approximate solution. So I will skip the strong form and weak form. I will skip all this. We are, you see, short of time. Now, you see errors, as I have told you that what type of errors can be generated. We have discretization errors, as I told you. Then while performing integration, when we are evaluating, then there can be, you see, errors generated because we are approximating certain solutions, right? Then round of error, you already know. So what is important is that once you have designed your model and finding the solution, your solution should converge. This is very important. You just look into for convergence. So as you go on reducing the error, your solution will converge. So ideally, you see, when your discretization error as well as your solution error, that should be reduced to 0 for accuracy of your results. Now in mesh refinement, you see, we have two types of refinements. We have H refinement and P refinement. Now H refinement means the size of the element. Refining the meshing means reducing the size of the elements. So one method is that. Second is polynomial order. That is, if you go on increasing the orders of polynomials, your elements will become more and more curved. So this is another type of refinement that is used. So this is one of the discretization, triangular element discretization that has been shown here. So here this is a coarser mesh with 228 elements, and this is a finer mesh with 912 elements. So here now in the software you must look for the convergence plot. It will look like this. So this is with the number of iterations and with the number of passes, the convergence should, you see, in fact this on the y-axis the error is being plotted. So error should go on reducing. So if the error is being reduced, you will say that your solution is converging. So if it is going, it is following the increasing trend, that means there is some error in your modeling or giving the parameters, because the solution will then never converge. So adaptive, I will skip. So various softwares, as I told you that we have COMSOL, HFSS, we have IE3D also. CST, you see, basically CST is based on finite integration method. But because earlier in the starting of the session, one of you told me that it is on a method of movements, but I will now clarify that CST is fundamentally it is based on finite integration technique. But since I told you that since now hybrid methods are being used, so that statement is also not very wrong, that it uses finite element method. Yes.
It's not Calibra, I think so.
Yeah.
No, madam. I think by mistake they muted.
Okay. So
Yeah, madam, sorry to interrupt, madam. Actually, the session is going very interesting. We are really running out of time because our next speaker.
No, that's right. This is my last slide. This is my last slide because I have already skipped a number of slides because I know there is a shortage of time.
It's very interesting,
so,
madam.
Yeah, HFSS, you see, that is also fundamentally it is based on a finite element, but it is using the boundary integral method also. FICO that is based on FEM with MOM. So these hybridizations are currently being used for improving the accuracy and for optimization of the results. So this is all about my talk. There is knowledge is, you see, unlimited. It is infinite. So we can carry on for any long time. But
Yes.
any queries? Yes, any queries? So if there is any query, you can ask. Otherwise,
I'll share your email ID, madam. And
sure.
participants, if you have a specific query related to
Yeah.
discussed by madam, you can get in touch with madam, and
I can.
Raghavan sir, madam, Raghavan sir is in meeting. He's he's suggesting one slot for madam can be allotted in the evening. Yes, yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yes, one lecture.
Yeah.
One lecture session again, once again, separately. Can be arranged. Yes, sir, sure.
One slot in the actually, I'm a little busy in the evening. It's not possible for me.
No, but one separate lecture we can arrange, madam, with the same set of participants. Not the part of this FDP, but we can have a separate session.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, sure. But can it be on any other day?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Any other day.
I will in fact elaborate these slides again. We can have the session. We can have interactive session, and I will elaborate because I have skipped a number of slides. I was going a little bit fast. I am also not satisfied. So
Yes,
I think on 14th can we have?
14th actually.
Because today actually today I am busy. Today I have a little bit busy schedule.
No, ma'am, it's okay. We can have a separate session on some other day other than regular days of FDP.
Yes, sure. Okay. Apart from this course, next week or within the course only?
Apart from this course, madam.
Yeah, then it's very fine.
Yes.
Sorry for today because in afternoon I'm busy.
Okay. It's okay, ma'am. No problem.
Yeah.
Okay, ma'am. I sincerely thank you for your time and giving the detailed explanation on the insight into numerical techniques on behalf of organizing committee, the institute. I once again thank you.
Thank you. Thanks to all of you. Thanks for patient hearing.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Participants, I think a break of 5 minutes, not more than 5 minutes, because next speaker is already joined. It's okay, and we continue from the same meeting. Sorry for the interruption that happened in between, but we take a break of 5 minutes, and at sharp 12:15 we start the next session. Thank you.